all for staying with us here on NTV Weekend Edition. On Talk of the Nation, we saw that earlier the National Unity Platform presidential candidate Robert Chagulanyi, in his New Year speech on social media, expressed dismay at events that have plagued his camp recently. Among them, the arrest of scores of his members on his campaign team in Kalangala. So tonight, we pick the thoughts of spokesperson of NUP Joel Senyonyi on how the party is planning to move on with just days to the election. Welcome to Talk of the Nation tonight.
Thank you, Sandra. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Joel Senyonyi. I want to believe it is starting on a fair note for you. Is that correct?
Of course not. There's many spillovers of 2020 into 2021. A number of our colleagues that were arrested in Kalangala, we don't quite know their whereabouts. So we understand some are in Kalangala, some are in Masaka at the police station, others who here are within the barracks, are held within the barracks. These are civilians. And it's been a very tumultuous situation because we sent lawyers there. They denied them access to these people. Their family members went doctors because we learned that some might not be in good shape, and they have denied us access to these people. So it's very worrisome. It's very disturbing a situation.
The bigger question is, what are the charges against them? You know, the police has also come out to dismiss claims that Nubian Lee and Eddie Mutwe, who are some of the members of your campaign team, were not brutalized. What are the charges against your members?
That's a good question. That's what we're asking police and all the other security agencies. Why are you holding these people? You know, legally, when you detain somebody, when you arrest somebody, and anybody can be arrested, hopefully the right way, not like, you know, the way these people were arrested, kidnapped, together with media, everybody was bundled up. Within 48 hours, you should be able to charge them, produce them in court, or release them. The 48 hours elapsed. These people are still being held, you know, in custody. And the biggest violation of their right is they've denied lawyers access to them, the families, you know, medical people to see those that might need medical attention. You see, even when you are arrested, your rights remain. So that's the bigger challenge, and we're also waiting to see if they get to be charged. What charges? Perhaps, you know, being on the campaign trail of a presidential candidate is a criminal offense. We are waiting to see.
Well, we are talking about 12 days to the election, you know, and the members of your new team have been arrested, but we've also seen members on Robert Chagulanyi's security team losing their lives, and some other people are in hospital. How is this affecting your campaign process?
I'll tell you something, Sandra. You see, dictatorships like the one we live in, their biggest tool, the biggest tool in their toolbox is inoculating fear in the people. And they do this in various ways. They will kill, they will arrest, they will maim, such that everybody begins to live in fear. Dictators are like terrorists. They trade in the same currency, fear. Terrorists, you know, operate by instilling fear. When a terrorist succeeds in you believing that this building, for example, is going to be bombed, even if they don't bomb it, but everybody's in panic and so on, the terrorist has succeeded. That's how dictators also operate. They want to instill fear in the people, so you cannot side with the opposition. Otherwise, you'll be killed, you'll be arrested, you'll be beaten, and all these different things. But to their dismay, they have found a generation that is very resilient. A generation that is saying, you know what, we want change, we want better. Do all that you've got to do to us, you know. You can break our bones, but you will not break our spirits. You will not break our resolve. You will not break our motivation. And so we keep going. But also, most importantly, because what we are doing doesn't break any law. That's why we keep going. That's why we stick to what we are doing. Because it's not criminal to want change. It's not criminal to say that, look, we want better healthcare, that we want better education. It's not criminal to say we want jobs for our young people. So we'll stick to these things. So the fear that they are trying to instill just will not work. It will not stick. And as you realize, the more they do these things, the more people get angry, the more people realize, you know what, we need change now more than ever, because another 5 years of this brutality will probably finish all of us.
We all keep talking about change, and if there's anything that has stood out is that Robert Chagulanyi has consistently talked about how the president is older, way older, and has probably outlived his time. But is it an issue of change in terms of age, or an issue of changing to getting better service delivery? What are we hinging on exactly to push Ugandans to vote the NUP party?
Sandra, if you and the viewers have been quite attentive, we've been articulating these issues. It's not just a question of change, even though that's part of the deal. We just removed age limit, and that's very problematic. I bumped into, you know, somebody recently who was part of, you know, the Bush structure And this fellow is very disappointed that Mr. Museveni removed term limits for starters, and then age limits, things that would ensure, tenets that would ensure a smooth transition of power in this our country. And here we are. So it's not just a question of change. If you have been listening to us, we are saying the status quo that we have today is very problematic. I don't know when you last went to a public hospital, Sandra. It's very disturbing. Women are giving birth on the floor. Our healthcare is in such a shambolic state. And some people will say, but will you be able to fix these things overnight? So I'll tell you something. 2016, 2017, and this is according to the Auditor General's report, government officials spent over 400 billion shillings to fly out of the country for treatment. And I said, alas, how about the taxpayer who is paying, footing these bills? Why don't we build hospitals for the taxpayer? Why don't we ensure that the taxpayer also gets to benefit? Why is it just, officials in government? We're spending 400 billion shillings almost on an annual basis for them to fly out. Thankfully, this year there's been very few, flying out because of COVID and all of that. And we're saying we must be able to fix this. And it's possible. Obote was shot at, with all his mistakes and so on, there's things that he tried to do. He was shot at when he was at Wuma. There was a gunshot to his mouth and so on. He was treated not from the US, but from Mulago. Idi Amin Dada, with all his challenges, the dictatorship and all of that, all the 9 known children of Idi Amin Dada were born from Mulago Hospital. But Mr. Museveni, his daughter is going to give birth. They'll put her on a presidential jet, take her to Germany at the cost of the taxpayer. So we are saying that has got to be fixed. Look at education. You see, if you want to build a country, you invest in the future generation, and that's education. So UPE, for example, a very good program. But you see, it's quantity education as opposed to quality education. That's why reports will tell you children in P7 cannot do P1 work. And for us, we're saying we must be able to fix education. Build the structures. For starters, children are studying under trees. When it rains, there's no schooling. First deal with the structure, then deal with the software. Pay teachers better. The question of having one teacher in a UPE school teaching 9 subjects, how? That teacher is poorly paid, the salary comes late, so they'll teach for 1 or 2 hours, then the teacher runs to the trading center to ride a border because they have a family to feed. We must be able to fix these things, Sandra. When you look at our economy, and I've seen, regime apologists gloating about how our economy grows, and they keep throwing these figures around. I have a statistical background, so I like to look at figures. And you see, figures have got to be interpreted with what is on ground. So when you tell the ordinary person, you see our economy has grown, it is now sweet, like the Minister of Finance was saying. The person in Mulimira, Nakao, was the person in the areas of Naguru go down, who is unemployed, who is running a small business. They don't see it. That money is not coming to them. The young people who are unemployed, some have actually gone to school. They're thinking, wait a minute, where are these figures? They promised us that by end of last year, 2020, in fact, they told us by 2020, that would mean January 1st, 2020, would be a middle-income economy. We are very far from that. But you see, all this is hinged on governance. We must be able to fix governance. We must be able to get leaders that have the heart of the people. And that's the most critical thing, Sandra. So there's people that will say, you see, I don't know, how qualified is Bobby Wine and so on. Of course, I asked how qualified was Museveni when he came with his fellow bushmen from the bush. So just young fellows trying out and so on. Once a leader has the heart for the people, you don't need to be a brain surgeon. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that, wait a minute, before you can spend so much on government officials going for healthcare abroad, fix the local hospitals. They don't require rocket science.
Well, Joel, speaking about all the hopes that you have as a party for this country, and for me, it takes me back to the fact that we've seen a number of your campaigns blocked, and we're just curious to know how many districts you've been able to reach to.
There's been numerous districts that we have failed to be able to make it to. For starters, the duration was quite a short one because we had we had not more than 60 days to go to 146 districts. Now, that's a tall order in comparison to the incumbent who has a chopper and he can go to 10 districts a day at the cost of the taxpayer. So for us, it's been a lot harder. And that's why when we drew the schedule, we said we're going to have 3 districts per day. And even that has been complicated. Why? Because of the regime apparatus that has made it convoluted for a candidate to go around. So there's districts that the RDC would say, I'll not allow you in my district. The RDC of Kitgum, for example, you know, he said, I'll not allow Chagulanyi in my district. I said, now, look at this charlatan. Which powers do you have to say that a presidential candidate who is allowed by law to traverse the country, there is a schedule. And then for you, you say, I'll not allow him in my district. Because according to this RDC, he imagines he was given the land title of the district, so it belongs to him in person. Some of these fellows have an exaggerated sense of self-importance. And so they have made it complicated. DPCs, you know, operating in a manner so wanton. Why are we going very far? The current situation that we're talking about, Kalangala. Kalangala was on the schedule for Honorable Chagulanyi to go to and campaign. Now, Kalangala is not even one of the districts where campaigns were banned, and we still take issue with the question of banning campaigns in Kampala and several others. But anyhow, Kalangala was not one of those districts. He got there, they arrested him, arrested the entire team that he was with before he could even enter the district. Why? Reasons not given. It is on schedule. It is not one of those where campaigns were banned. He's going to campaign like he has a couple of others, you know. So it's been complicated. Sandra, we swim against the tides, but we have to swim nonetheless. So
as we continue, as you said, as we continue to swim, as you continue to swim towards what you believe will be achieved come 14th January, paint for us a picture of what you hope to achieve on 14th. You know, there is a general fear among Ugandans. I do not know if you've interacted with that same fear of people are scared of what is likely to happen come 14th January 2021. Do you think Ugandans should be worried? Should we be worried? We saw the massacre that we would love to paint it that way on the 18th. Both parties played a role, actually, would want to admit. But
which parties are you talking about?
The opposition and also the government.
So what role did you play? You mean the people that were killed during the protest?
Because the rioters were also part of the entire process.
So among the people that were shot dead, do you have evidence of anybody that one deserved to be killed? Because you see, the way the law operates,
absolutely,
Sandra,
no one can independently say
an offense,
that someone deserves to die. But the moment you hit the streets, Joel,
and then you are sentenced.
The moment you hit the streets and you cause, no, you do not deserve to be shot at. But it is believed, at least according to what the police says, that they are supposed to maintain law and order.
By shooting people dead?
What they did was absolutely wrong. But let me take you back to my point. Yes, we saw incidents on 18th November that painted a picture of Ugandans should worry of what should happen. And there's that general feeling of fear. Come 2021, which we're already in, 14th January, should we be worried?
So two things. One, of course, like I said, when you have a dictator in charge like we do here, there's concern. And this message of, like I said, dictators like Mr. Museveni are not too different from terrorists. Terrorists and dictators use the same currency. Like I said in my preamble, they all use fear, instill fear in the population, you know, instill fear in those that are opposing you, like the situation is. And that's why you saw after the murder, the cold-blooded murders that did happen, Mr. Museveni went on TV and he was gloating over it. And he said, these ones are trying to disturb us, we showed them. And I said, wow, what kind of leader is this? At least have some shame. Pretend, you know, but clearly he threw all pretense out the window. And so they try and instill fear that if you agitate for what is right, if you agitate for change, you will be killed, you will be beaten, and all these different things. We have and continue to rally people to come out and vote on January 14th. In droves, in large numbers, like never before. And we're glad that many young people registered to vote. We want them to come out and vote. And after voting, keep a safe distance, but keep around. Keep an eye on your vote. That's very important. Because Mr. Museveni and his entourage, I'll call it, have mastered the art of rigging elections. But they have found our eyes wide open. And that's why we are even now bringing in a bit of technology, the YouVote app and all of that. We want to make sure that the victory of the people is not stolen. So I heard him say that, you see, the Electoral Commission is operating in concert with people in the opposition to steal the election. And I thought, wow. You know, Sandra, there's a time I was downtown, about 4 years ago. I was on Kampala Road. And so a guy snatched a phone of somebody. And so as he was running, people were running after him. And so he realized everybody was running, chasing him. He pocketed the phone very quickly, and then he pointed at somebody else. The thief, that one, let's chase after the thief. That's how Museveni is operating. He's the election thief. Everybody knows that. The Supreme Court has said that. Not once, not twice, not 3 times. And so he's trying to say, no, I am the good boy. The other ones are the bad ones. But anyhow, we are getting set for the election. People should not be fearful. I think that's important, the message to communicate. They should not instill fear in you that you see now there's the whole army and they've brought in LDUs, thousands, hundreds of thousands of them. Let's play our part, you know, let's go and vote. Let's remain peaceful, that's important. And we have never called on people to go out there and fight. We know who the violent ones are. But we are hoping that the voting will happen and that the voice of the people will be respected on that day.
Well, maybe as we come to the end of our conversation this evening, talk to us about the YouVote app. How does it work? I know the presidential candidate mentioned it is going to be on Google Play soon or later. How does it work?
Yeah, so we will be unveiling it officially and showing people how it works. But Sandra, this is 2021. We ought to operate, as my presidential candidate like to say, in a Robert Dobbs style. And so there's things that we must be able to do. We must get technology involved in these whole processes. So one, we are telling people, go out and vote. Make sure you look out on the polling station so that your vote is not stolen. Now, usually the bigger challenge is the transferring of the vote from the polling station to, previously it was Nambole, but now Nambole was, it metamorphosed into something else. I don't know where the National Tally Center will be, wherever anyhow, to that place. That's where the tricks usually happen. And so for us, we are saying we'll get our DR forms from the polling station, be able to tabulate them, you know, through the app that we are putting out there. So our agents, each of them will have this app downloaded, take a picture, send to our tally center. We're going to have a tally center. And after we have done the tabulation, we are going to declare what we have. It's not even so much declaring ourselves, you know, because the law says that the EC is the one that declares the ultimate winner, but ours will be to say, so here is evidence that we have from across the country. And then we'll wait to see what Mr. Byabakama will declare at the end of the day.
All right, thank you so much, Joel Senyonyi, speaking to us about the latest in the NUP camp. We definitely do wish you the best, and we hope as a country that come 14th January will have a peaceful transition of power and a more or less peaceful elections. Well, thank you all for joining us. NTV Weekend Edition will continue shortly.